So before we even get into the charts, I'm gonna lace y'all up on the fundamental side. And if I'm talking fundamentals, it's definitely pretty serious because I'm not even a fundamental guy, right? I believe that the market always prices in your regular, fundamental events, news events and stuff like that. But with World War III on the horizons, I think is probably suitable to talk about, some of the implications that it's going to have in the markets, right? So we're going to start that off with this weekly outlook today, and then we're going to jump into the charts and what that means for the charts. So first things first, right? Again, thank y'all for tuning in to the call, but let's talk about, what's going on in these markets, right? Obviously, just taking a look at oil right here. Oil has had the two most volatile weeks it's probably had in history, right? I mean, even just looking back on the weekly chart, I mean, we've had some big swings before, but when we just talking about the sheer size of the candlesticks, we have not had 2 weeks like this back to back ever, really. And this is very, very important to understand because if we understand what's going on in the Middle East, the channel, the Strait of Hormuz, where they ship oil across the world and stuff like that. This is actually, over 20% of the world's supply of oil. All right. Now, with that being said, when oil prices increase, everything follows. All right. It costs more for the transportation of food to go from the farmer to the supermarket because the oil costs more, the diesel costs more in the truck to transport it. So this is going to raise the cost of everything in store, everything that needs to be transported from a location to the supermarket to the grocery store, et cetera, which is essentially everything. So we can definitely see a shock wave across all industries because of what's going on here, right? And everybody is only focused on oil, but there's a lot that plays into this. And I just spent the last couple weeks really doing a deep dive on everything that's going to happen. And I definitely believe it's going to be easy to understand what direction the market's going to go. Now it's just going to be, us finding potential entries when the markets are going parabolic the way that they are right now. The market's moving in a straight line. It's kind of hard to sometimes to catch an entry. Sometimes you just have to try to get in where you can and hope for the best. And if you get in at a good enough position, you can hold it for as long as you need to in order to make money. Right now, the whole thing with this is, obviously we know what the implications are, and this isn't even supply and demand pricing. This is speculative pricing when we look at oil. We look at the increase that we've seen just in the past 2 weeks. All right. The war is really, truth be told, just about a week and a couple days old, but we already seen about a 65% increase in oil prices, which is outrageous, right? And this is really speculative pricing because a lot of the oil leaving the Middle East would not have even reached its destination yet, right? So the corporations are pricing in oil based off of what the perceived hit is going to be. But once supply and demand issues and these supply chain issues really take a hit, once reserves really get low, I definitely believe we're going to blow the top off of oil, right? The previous high for U.S. oil was 147. All right. And this was back for the first pandemic, the '08, situation, not pandemic, but, financial collapse in 2008. We've seen a high of 147. I definitely believe we're going to go higher than that. And my hope was that we wouldn't. But considering things are not cooling down, things are actually warming up more and more. There's talks about boots on the ground. There's talks that troops might be getting sent out there soon. And even another thing, the E-4B plane, all right, which is essentially the doomsday plane, all right, that signals nukes to submarines, has actually been spotted flying towards the Middle East, right? So, we're hoping that it doesn't take that type of turn, but with the current, administration, there's really no telling what they're gonna do because it's more of, in my opinion, more of a legacy thing. I feel like Trump is more the guy who wants to go down in history as the guy who did it, the guy who hit the button, versus somebody that just makes the best, decision, for mankind, right? So again, this thing is, warming up more and more. It's not cooling off. And there's a lot of other implications that, can be derived from this, right? One thing also being, all right, 92%, all right, 92% of the world's sulfur comes from refining oil and gas, all right? So sulfur is obviously important. It's one of the most refined minerals. And sulfuric acid is how you extract copper and cobalt, right? So in understanding that, without that, there's no transformers, EV batteries, and data center substrate is all going to take a hit. Taiwan has 2 weeks of liquefied natural gas, which has also been pretty much brought to a halt because of the blockade that's taking place in the Strait of Hormuz. So Taiwan has about 2 weeks of natural liquefied natural gas reserves. And once that happens, there's no chips being created, and they're responsible for 90% of the AI chips and 33% of the world's synthetic fertilizer, which helps us grow crops and stuff, also comes out of the Middle East. So it's not just oil, but also the EV industry, the AI industry, chip production. All of these things are going to take a hit. So a lot of people just look at the strength of the military when they think who is going to win this war. But you also got to think of what is the U.S. economy propped up on, right? When they took us off of the gold standard, what happened is now our essentially our currency isn't backed by anything, all right? Our currency isn't backed by anything, but what kept us strong and what makes us have the world's strongest currency is the fact that we were we're backed by the what we call petrodollar, right? Everybody in the world is essentially exchanging oil with US dollars is what makes the US dollar valuable. Because you got to think, we're not a big exporter. We don't really create much of anything, but we have the illusion, or not even the illusion, it's the truth. We do have a strong military, but the fear of military consequences for not using the US dollar in trade is one of the main things that's held up our economy. And, when you think about the people like in the Middle East, if you think about who are the biggest investors into the United States, who are the biggest investors into AI and stuff like that, a lot of these investors come from the Middle East. And if they are not able to make money due to what's going on, due to, their oil production being capped and, pretty much messed up. I've seen oil refineries are being bombed. The Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Oil can't get through. Whatever oil has been produced, it can't get through to its destination. And then the other refineries are being bombed across Saudi Arabia and other countries. So it's not looking good because first off, the value of our dollar is tied into trade, well, from oil, transactions because we pretty much force every country to do their trade in US dollars. So that is going to cause a big problem as well as our stock market being propped up by a handful of companies, right? When you think about the market share that Nvidia has, the market share that Meta has, that Google has, that a couple of these other companies have in our stock market, and they've talked about this AI bubble, right? And truth be told, the bubble was said to collapse. There was rumors that this bubble could collapse long before this war, right? Just because the investments are outspending, they're outspending their own earnings, right? When you think about AI, right? When you think about the money that's being dumped into AI versus the money that's being created by it, it's very lopsided, all right? But the perceived value of the future of AI is what kind of keeps our stock market afloat. But now we have a situation where it was already risky because people are already speculating that it could be a bubble. But now the problem comes into play is that these countries in the Middle East are not going to be just throwing the bag into these AI projects because now their money is being messed with, and now they have to be more strategic about where they put their money because their main breadwinner, which is oil and gas, is being messed with. So this could be like a catastrophic collapse, truth be told, for indices, for NASDAQ, for the for US 30. All of these pairs that we love to trade, I am extremely bullish. Like this, or bearish, excuse me. This is the most bearish I've ever been for indices because if we look over time and over history, the indices have always been bullish, right? I mean, most of us have started trading, whether you started trading recently, whether you started trading in 2020 during the pandemic, wherever you started trading, the market for the most part has been bullish. And we have these short cycles of bearishness, right? We have these short cycles of bearishness, but then the market just rebounds, right? Market just rebounds, right? The longest bearish period the stock market has ever had, right, in recent history was this. And this was about a year, a little over a year long, right? It had a year long bearish period. 2008 was another bearish period. And we see how long this one lasted before the market rebounded again. So this one was about a year, a little less, actually, less than a year before that one rebounded. Then we could go all the way back to, what is this, 2000, if I'm not mistaken, is that the .com thing? I'm not quite sure, but this one lasted a couple years, actually. This one lasted pretty long, right? But overall, what we see is the market has always exponentially went higher, and we're due for a large correction, right? We're due for it. Some would say that it's already here when you look at job numbers, when you look at all of the things, inflation, et cetera. But I do think we're on the verge of a huge collapse. So what does that mean for us as traders, right? Obviously, we could position ourselves to benefit off of this, but this might be something you want to talk to family members about. This might be something you want to talk to people about just to position themselves properly. Because again, it's not looking pretty when you understand that the stock market is essentially a big Ponzi scheme because it's a bubble, but as long as there's money going into it, it won't burst, right? If you think of a Ponzi scheme, as long as there's more money going into it, essentially it'll continue to rise, it'll continue to pay out, it'll continue to do what it needs to do, right? But the moment the main source of money gets cut off, then you run into issues, then you start running into that perceived value is not going to be held up by investments and money coming in. And now we can see a pretty drastic collapse taking place, right? Again, due to the fact that some of our main investors' main source of income is being cut off, that's going to have huge implications on the amount of money dumped pouring into these AI companies that keep the stock market up. Oil and gas, again, we're going to see the cost of goods skyrocket because when it costs more to get a piece of chicken from the farm to the supermarket, they're going to charge us more to compensate for the difference in the shipment cost, right? The cost of that it takes for them to transport those goods from point A to point B. As that increases, everything else follows, all right? And then we already talked about a lot of the other things, whether it be Taiwan, etc. So again, guys, I'm gonna be honest, it's not looking good. I'm usually a guy that's very, very optimistic, and I know we're gonna be okay as traders. But again, just the common man, the common, average person that doesn't know what to do, and they're relying on a competent government to help them survive. I don't think that there's going to be much bright days ahead for those people. But us as traders, it's going to be important to position yourselves in the right direction, right? So, what does this mean again for the markets? If you guys have been, tapping into my calls, you know that I've been bearish on NASDAQ just based off price patterns, long before this war even started, right? If you guys remember, I actually drew this pattern, and you can probably see it on some of my older weekly outlooks, but I drew this pattern here because I seen this here, this hezzy crossover, where the market gave us this hezzy crossover, right? Came up, gave us a little head and shoulders here, and the market dropped, but it made a higher low. I say we're gonna wait for this hezzy to get taken out, and then the market would make new lows, right? Hopefully some of y'all remember this conversation we had, right? And this is essentially exactly what we see happen right here. All right. When the market tapped in to this region right here, it came and cleared out this hezzy that we had here. So this hezzy is this move here. The market comes and makes a low here. It comes up, makes a little head and shoulders pattern, then it sells off again. But when it sells off again, it doesn't make a new low, it makes a higher low. So this higher low became a liquidity pool, all right, for the future sales. Okay. So that higher low became the liquidity pool for the future sales. We wanted to wait for the hezzy to get cleared out because we understood there's money above it. Understanding that that was internal range liquidity. We should all have anticipated this bearishness here, right? Now, unfortunately, this little entry snuck itself in the middle of the night. I wasn't able to catch that, the top of that one. But overall, the new lows were anticipated, right? And we still haven't actually met them yet. So this is going to continue to sell off throughout the day, all right? And we're going to make new lows, which will complete, this new leg of structure, okay? So now, what is it that we see happening here? Let's just look for some further downside targets. All right. Now this can happen as long as this whole scenario is playing out in the Middle East. And now unfortunately it's kind of past the point of return, considering that they've killed, certain the leader of the country. And if you know anything about those people out there, they're not the type to just wave the white flag or anything like that. They're the type they willing to die about it. You know what I mean? So it's not just gonna be a quick ending to what's taking place. They already in too deep, essentially, right? And I could see this thing playing out a lot longer. Then this is not like a Venezuela type situation where they go in and get out real quick, right? This is a much bigger country with a capable military, and they also have very capable alliances with Russia, China, and North Korea. So, this is probably the biggest fish that we've tried to fry, because you got to understand what the world likes to do. It's just a game of monopoly where they try to acquire different things. And a lot of people ask, why do they do this, right? And you got to think about it for yourself, right? You may be trying to acquire money in your bank account, right? You want a certain dollar amount in your bank account. Then you get to a point to where you start reinvesting into things like real estate, and you might want a certain amount of property, certain amount of doors, right? And then you go above that. And like once you've already gotten all the money in the world, you got billions and billions of dollars worth of real estate, what do you do past that? Then you start to acquire land in countries and topple governments and stuff. So it's really just a game to these people of, just acquiring more power and more leverage the same way we do, but we do it on like on much smaller
Thank you.
in
Yes,
order to
ma'am.
But we're playing the game on a much lower level because we're still in the money game. We're still trying to acquire money, while these people they're past that. You know, they're dealing in the billions of dollars and stuff, trillions of dollars, and now it's more about acquiring, natural resources and stuff like that. So, again, it's kind of crazy when people ask why do they do this, and it's like it's the same way. It's the same reason we do anything. It's the same reason we're trying to make more money and put more money in our bank account. But once you've done all of that to the highest level, this is just like another step in that hierarchical game of life, I guess you could say, in terms of trying to acquire things. And this is essentially what the world is doing, right? So, but it does affect all of us. I can see US 30, not US 30, but NASDAQ specifically having a massive drop. All right. Obviously, it's not going to all happen at once, but long-term target, I'm definitely looking at these lows. All right. Long-term target, definitely looking at these lows again because we already passed the point of return when it comes to what's going on in this war. And when you know where the money is and what's propping up our stock market, it's not, hard to see why this can happen one bit. All right. Not hard at all to see why this can happen. Um, yeah, he said, if I'm talking fundamentals, it's real. Nah, that's a fact. Go ahead, P. Talk to me.
So I'm just curious to know, like, all right, if the Nasdaq is going to take an impact, then do you think that like with everything that's going on, we can see the price of gold kind of reflecting like the bullishness of oil?
Not to the same degree, because gold is already overbought. And that's the thing where gold was just kind of skyrocketing all last year. And, going into this year, I feel like gold is kind of more rebalanced than anything, where oil has been, waiting to kind of have this type of reaction. Gold, because oil wasn't booming when gold was, but this has more of a direct impact on gold, I mean on oil than it does gold. Now, this is the reason why. I mean, we haven't really seen that type of reaction from gold since this war started. Truth be told, it was much more bullish prior to the war. And that was like the main giveaway for me that the market wasn't going to go up because everybody said it would. And when I look at gold, I try to do the opposite. Like just in trading in general, I try to observe the masses and do the opposite because 95% of traders lose. So when it comes to something like gold, I feel like that's what everybody's anticipating happening. But I don't believe gold is going to have the same type of reaction because it's already been priced in over the past. Everything that's happening right here, just currently has been priced in over the last year already. And it just everything that's happening in the Middle East, because if we remember, I mean, you've been in my community for a while. If we go to October 7th of 2023, this was when gold bought up, right? And I remember this because we actually caught this buy. And if I knew what I knew now, I would have held. But truth be told, I'll probably never hold a trade this long unless it's less in a completely different portfolio or something like that. But that's 2020. Let me go to 2023. My bad. October 7th, right there. Hold on. Right here. Right. So this is where, ever since this moment, I mean, gold was bullish before that, but here we just seen it go really, crazy, went insane. So I feel like a lot of the, gold pricing has already been put in to the point where it could just kind of go sideways, and then we're gonna see oil really make the move that we're expecting gold to make, right? Everybody's expecting gold to make that move, but I honestly think it'll be oil more so than gold, right? So I'm looking for oil to make new highs within the next couple of weeks, considering that the war probably not going to be over by then, right? And then stock market is gonna crash because of that, right? Every time oil is extremely high, it has that type of correlation because I mean, most consumers are not prepared for that. I mean, it's already hard enough for most people when you talk about just being able to afford goods and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a steak guy, but I go to the grocery store and I'm like, damn, like a couple ribeyes is $40. I might as well go, to a steakhouse at this point. Like it's everything is expensive, you know what I mean? Everything. So it's like with oil being priced like this and oil, like truth be told, if it does what it just did in the past
Okay,
2 weeks,
so y'all get this,
it's
y'all
gonna
want to
make
start
new
spot
highs.
moving?
All right. If it just does whatever it recently did, all right, it's gonna make new highs. So that is the big problem there. Like if this continues at the rate it's been doing for the past 2 weeks, it's gonna make all-time highs, which is gonna, it's gonna shock a lot of people at the price pump for sure. And again, everything else is gonna follow, and that's gonna collapse the economy because people gonna stop buying stuff, right? People gonna buy what they need, to the best of their ability. But the thing that really pumps the stock market is just people having the money to buy things, right? So, it's gonna have an impact on everything. You know what I mean? So, that's what's gonna happen in these markets, right? Now, so far as opportunities that we can capitalize on, look, I'm a traditional buy low, sell high type of trader, right? I don't like catching these moves that have already started. Like once the market is already at a low point, like I hate trying to sell, but I'm gonna be honest, guys, you may have to put a little money in an account and see what you can catch, if I'm just being honest, because we're at a point fundamentally where there's a chance you don't get a retracement anymore, right? We were lucky to get this retracement here, and you get a hezzy crossover like this where the market hesitates, crosses over, it comes back, gives you an entry. Now you can ride it down, right? Get a hezzy here, crossover, market comes and takes it out, and you get an entry. So we're grateful for every pattern that presents itself. But we are getting to the point of shit hitting the fan where we might not get a real retracement next time. And if that happens, you have to be prepared to try to catch a low entry and continue selling. Now, if I was just, me just looking at this right here, I do see this little hitch in the market. I would love to see the market find a way to get enough steam to come grab that wick, right? If we can come grab this wick, that'll make me extremely happy. If we can grab this wick, I'm all in, right? I don't need to see nothing else. All right, because it's clear what the leg of structure wants to do. It's clear where the market intends to go. When you see where we left, all right, we just had a hezzy here, crossover bearish. We just came and cleared the hezzy where we filled in this area of imbalance. So now we know that the market is making a new leg to the downside. All right. Now, if I look to the left, I don't really see anything that makes me want to buy other than the fact that we can take out some liquidity right here, right? And if there's enough people taking profit at this low, that may weaken the selling pressure just enough to give us a retracement. Because you got to think, let's say there's a 100 million lots worth of sales right here, and people close 70 million of them. That means, the seller pressure is going to get lighter. And if the selling pressure gets lighter, we can see a retracement, okay? A bullish retracement. So that's the best case scenario is we get to this low and there's enough sellers take profit to where it'll give us a bullish retracement. Okay. If we can get a bullish retracement to either this point of interest here or this one, I would be all in on sales, guys. I don't see a scenario where we come back to this high. All right. I wanted us to come back to this high because as you can see, this happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. I was not woke. for this entry, and I was sick that I missed it. And, but we got other opportunities within this move. But just the peak of this high, I don't see a scenario of what's going on across the world where we come back up to these highs, right? Best case scenario, again, is there's enough profit taking at this low in order to create a short-term retracement, either to this level here or best case scenario to this level here. If we can get to about 25,000, everybody should probably sell, right? Even a little lower than that, maybe like 24,951 or just 24,950, just to make it easier to remember. 24,950, that's a sale, right? If any scenario where we come up to this hezzy here, all right, because you see the market does respond off this area before it collapses. If the market can find a way to come up to this hezzy, that'll probably be the biggest sell I take all year, right? Because I'm willing to put real bread behind that. That's how confident I am. The market's gonna drop. You see the highs are taking liquidity, all right? So if you just look at each high, this is a strong high. This wick clears out that wick. This is a strong high. This high clears out the hezzy right there. So you're seeing the patterns of strong highs. We see the hesitation here and the crossover. There's a little hesitation here. So I have to at least consider this zone here. But best case scenario, if we can come back to this zone, I'm comfortable putting everything on this trade because there's nothing positive happening in the world right now that will send the market significantly higher. So if we can get a retracement of this size to get to this zone, that is the best case scenario, unless the war just ends and everything goes back to normal. Then we can go back on our bullish trajectory because, again, NASDAQ indices are historically bullish 85, 90% of the time. But unless that happens, I don't see anything good happening from this. I mean, it could be good for us as traders, but maybe your parents' 401ks and stuff like that. I don't know. Right. So that is what I see happening on NAS. If we get to 24, if we get to 24,680, I think you could take a sell in here just for good measure, right? Just in case, because again, there's too much downside to pass up on this, right? Be aware that this entry could be a loss. Okay, this entry here could be a loss if the market decides to go up to 24,950. Okay, if the market chooses to go to 24,950, this first trade will be a loss, but that's fine because when you look at the downside potential of how far it can drop, that first entry is more than worth it. Okay. That first entry is more than worth the risk. Okay. When you look at all of this money that we can go grab right here. All right. There's a lot of potential down here to come grab. All right. Hold on, y'all. Hold on real quick. All right. So GBP USD. I got this continuing to drop. All right, guys. Dollar will probably start going bullish. A lot of people think bullish dollar correlates to good economy. That's not really the case. All right. If you look historically, a lot of times where the market is kind of going in recessions and stuff like that, there are times where the dollar goes bullish. So there's a lot of other implications that play into that. I do have GU continuing to go bearish. Again, it's just about finding a solid entry opportunity, which we don't really have at the moment. So let's just try to see this gap fill. That's the main thing we can look for. That's the first thing. I'm not a big gap guy, but if I had to, take any approach to this market, it would be to wait for the gap to fill, right? I'm not a huge gap guy, but it seems like we've been having gaps every week because there's always something going on over the weekend. So I have no choice really but to play gaps these days, right? Same thing with Euro USD. Let's wait for this gap to close. I'm not gonna buy this, with anticipation that the gap's gonna close because that's dangerous, right? There's no guarantee that this is the bottom, right? There is a high likelihood that the gap will get filled, but the low likelihood is knowing exactly where the bottom is going to form. So I would just wait for that to play out and then try to find some positions on that. All right. Let's take a look at gold real quick. Um, Overall, again, I know this is very shocking to a lot of people. That gold is dropping. Gold dropped even further than I wanted it to. If you guys were on the weekly outlook last week, I even told y'all, don't be in a rush to buy gold. If anything, I wanted gold to reach this green zone and then I was gonna sell, right? Because I wanted us to come and clear this high out and then sell off. Market dropped just short of that, but we're seeing huge bearish moves now. And again, I feel like buying is the easy analysis, which is why people are getting wrecked, right? The easy thing to do is to buy, but I feel like that's part of the reason why so many people are getting wrecked right now because again, they're not taking into consideration that how overbought gold already is. All right. I consider gold to still be a risky buy at this point. I'd like to see this logo. All right. I like to see this logo. I do see that entry that some of you caught at the open, but at this point, it's not nothing you can really do about it. I'm not going to tell you to sell at the lows. That's not my type of strategy. I know some people like breakout trading and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people. So I'm just going to allow gold to either take out buy side or sell side liquidity. And once it does that, I can give you guys a better indication of where price wants to go. Now, I'm really hoping that we can at least come grab 5,000. If we get underneath 5,000 again, who knows? We can definitely potentially start going in another direction because we have a strong low here. The market does transition to the upside where we do have a hezzy, okay? And then here we have a hezzy crossover, okay? So again, the concepts that we trade with, they're principles, okay? They're principles that you look for in the charts, and you got to be able to train your eyes to see them in different shapes and sizes. So here we have a strong low, hezzy crossover, all right? So here could be an area where the market gives us a potential buy area. But again, that is below 5,000. So once we get underneath 5,000, because everybody thought we was going to 6 and 7, once we get underneath five, I don't think the market will be is extremely overbought at that point because I do believe we'll eventually reach, $7,000, $8,000 on gold. I just don't think it's going to happen exactly the moment people think is going to happen. But the next area I'd be interested in even pressing the buy button personally would be underneath 5,000 like 49.60, okay? 49.60 and below. I think that's a good area to look for some buys. Again, we have our strong low, we have our hezzy crossover, we have our low here that we can mark up as internal range liquidity. All right. And then we have this very strong bullish candle that creates a little bit of imbalance here where we can see the market rebalance itself. So, start the week off bearish, it leaves people confused, wondering what the hell's going on. We knock out lows here, knock out internal liquidity here, and then maybe the market can accumulate here to go a little bit higher. All right. So I'll be looking out for that as well. All right. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. I don't look at Bitcoin every day, But I do feel like just something to, talk about real quick. Obviously we've been waiting for the market to turn around for a while, man. Not quite sure when it's gonna turn around, but just seeing this price action here, I think we're gonna make another low. Okay. I'd be looking for underneath 60,000 within the next week or two. Okay. Underneath 60,000. You can kind of tell once the market starts to go sideways a little bit, whether or not it's going to go higher or go lower. It's the same thing when I kind of came to my realization about this. At first, I thought it was going to buy. Once it ranged a little bit, cleared this high out here, that's when I kind of knew what's up. You know what I mean? And we would probably go lower. It's the same pattern. Really, this and this are the same pattern. If you could like really train your eyes to see it, it's really the same thing. You see it, right? They look just alike. This one is just a little bit smaller than this one, but we range and then we clear out that high right there, right? So the market goes sideways, then it clears out that high, then we get that next leg to the downside. So I would be looking for Bitcoin to go sub 60 for sure. I say like, 50,000 or so. Maybe it's safe to buy. I'm gonna be honest. As somebody that believes in crypto a lot, we're in a place in the world right now. I don't want to say it's a wrap for crypto. Like that would be stupid to say. But bro, I'm gonna be honest. Anything is on the table right now. When you think about like even in the Epstein files and stuff like that, it's like literally anything is on the table. Because if Epstein is the creator of Bitcoin, which he might be, who knows? It could be a whole bigger play than we even recognize, right? Like I put my little tinfoil hat on, I go into my conspiracy mode, and I'm like, what if this is just the biggest rug pull of all time? You know what I mean? Most rug pulls are like a week long, 2 weeks. They might pump a coin for a couple weeks or a month and then rug it. But I'm like, if you got all the world's politicians and bankers in your pocket, what if this is just like a 15-year rug pull? Like, what if this is just something they created in 2000, whenever they created Bitcoin, 2008, and they just pump it and then rug it like 15 years later? That would be insane, right? But who knows, man? Who knows? I mean, nobody expected this from Bitcoin, truth be told, at least not this far of a drop. We all knew it would drop a little bit, but I personally don't think anybody was thinking sub 60. And if they are, most people can't admit that they thought it was, they didn't know it was going that low, right? But I would say look at sub 60. You could probably start getting into some buys down here. You got a little internal liquidity here. All right, strong low. Here we got a strong hezzy. So now that becomes our low. Then we got another hezzy crossover to the upside. I would look at, again, 59,000, start looking for potential accumulation opportunities on Bitcoin. If it is a real asset, I could see it buying from, 60 and below. If it's not, who knows what the future holds. It could just be, one of them things, man. Nothing, I don't put nothing past the government these days, right? With the stuff that we done figured out in the past few weeks, past month or two, I don't put nothing past them. You know what I mean? Like it could be a speculatory asset, which is why gold and stuff like that, the stuff that you could truly believe in, those are always going to be safer in my opinion. But, that's that. So gold, we're looking at 49.60 and below. All right. So remember that number, 49.60 and below. All right. Write it down. Do what you got to do. 49.60 is where I'm looking to potentially go long on gold. All right. At least to put my finger on the trigger. Right. Best case scenario, we come and grab this low here for the lower time frame hezzy crossover. Right. It's not guaranteed, I'm playing the higher time frame right now. But here we see we got strong low. The market hesitates here, crosses over. So if we go to 49.05 or just 4,900 flat, beautiful buy opportunity here. When you look at the buy box, all right, from here to here, that is a beautiful area to try to find buys, all right? And you can risk small with very large potential, okay? So 49.60 and 49.05 would be my two areas of interest to buy there. Again, GU and EU, I'm gonna just let them kind of, create their direction however they see fit. NASDAQ, I am bearish on, okay? But we need to find a retracement in order to take a safe buy or a safe sell, excuse me. All right. Otherwise, you can just sell because this could be, the start of a huge recession, considering what's going on in the Middle East. Like, I'm not telling you it's a bad sale here. I'm just telling you don't be surprised if you get this retracement. So just know what you're dealing with. Okay. Yes, the market can collapse from here the longer this war continues. But if you're trying to make the right decision from a risk to reward, technical analysis perspective, the best choice would be to wait until either this zone or this zone gets hit. Okay. I'm not a fan of selling at the lows, but I've also never been in World War III before. So I don't know what, this might be a good sell in today's market. Who knows? All right. But again, preliminary target, let's expect to hit 23,840. Right. We should hit that this week, most definitely, probably by Tuesday at the latest. Depending on how fast that retracement takes place, if it takes place. And then we should be working our way down about, 23,000, 22.6 area. And just over the course of this whole debacle, 16,000 it should be en route. All right. And then once we get down there, maybe this thing turns around or, maybe we lose and China becomes a superpower. Who knows, man? It's very interesting times, right? There's a lot of people speculating we might lose this thing. And it's not because we don't have the military power, it's just because our economy is propped up on too many different variables that are all intertwined with each other. There's a lot of countries that have the ability to stand on their own because of their natural resources, because of, the way they do business. Russia would be a good example. Russia, they don't do a lot of trade with anybody, truth be told. Other than, their allies, which it ain't many of them, but they have enough natural resources to survive. Like they got the most natural resources in the world, truth be told, for one continent. Or one country. You would probably think it's somewhere in Africa or something, but it's actually Russia. So they can keep themselves afloat. China, they have strategic relationships. They can keep themselves afloat. America is one of those countries where, you know, the threat of our military and people using our money is what keeps us afloat. And if we don't have that for any reason, it could be catastrophic. All right. So do your research, man. I'm just giving my perspective here today. Good book or good YouTube to read or to listen to would probably be uh World Order. What is it?
So, an
Change the
interesting
World
thing
Order.
is happening in MAGA these days. When it comes to the media pundits, there is a huge split when it comes.
So, Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. Crazy because he could talk about all this 4 years ago and is literally playing out almost as if he has a time capsule. But every great empire, lasts about two, three
Money's
hundred
back
years.
to the year six.
You know what I mean? So if you look at every empire, I mean, 300 years or so, that's about as long as each one lasts. So when you talk about, the United States, we coming up on that cycle where it could be a new big dog take over. And if that's the case, then, it is what it is, man. Get rich now. I would say between this and AI, you have limited time, guys, to get rich, right? So take it serious. You know what I mean? Like I wake up every day with a mission to make at least four to five figures a day, right? Four figures a day is pretty easy at this point. You know, every blue moon I hit five. But it's like if I have to hit four figures a day to even feel safe in this type of economy, and I encourage all y'all to do the same. Um, figure out a way to make even more money outside of trading as well. You know, trading is a way to multiply your money, but if you have cash flow restraints, trading is going to be difficult because you don't have it to lose. But I encourage y'all to, up your leverage, solve bigger problems, figure out what people need, solve those problems where they're willing to pay a premium and, make as much as you can. Because again, between AI, the future was already looking uncertain with job security and stuff like that. And now this is just going to heighten the problem because now you're going to, throw mass inflation and high oil prices on top of that. So it's like the house is on fire right now. And now we just trying to see if this shit gonna burn down or if we could put the fire out. But the house is definitely on fire. If you trading, you in the right industry, guys. Because I tell people all the time, they made fun of traders for a long time. You know what I mean? Like I remember back in 2020 and stuff, people was, oh, you one of them forex dudes? But I'm telling you, it's gonna be a point in time where the only thing you can do is trade, right? And if you guys are learning these concepts now, whether it be the Hezi crossover, whether it be understanding liquidity concepts, stuff like that, you're going to be in a good position when everybody tries to start trading because there's going to be a lot of fresh meat in the markets, a lot of fresh liquidity in the markets, and they don't know what to look for the way that we've been learning and prepping and, getting ready for years and years. So, you know, us just knowing what to look for, us just knowing, what the market patterns and market manipulation looks like, you're going to be in a better position to survive when all of that fresh money comes into the market. We lost about 100,000 jobs again in the month of February, and this has been a recurring theme since the new administration got into office, right? So much so that they were actually firing people for putting out the proper statistics, right? So any positive statistics, honestly, you could only take it with a grain of salt because people are getting fired for putting out the right statistics. That's just how bad the economy is. There's more college kids in school than jobs that are available. We're losing about 100,000 jobs per month, and this is only going to accelerate with the economy dropping. People are going to be more incentivized to cut jobs and hire AI replacements. So this was already going to happen regardless. But if the stock market takes a hit, companies are going to prioritize their earnings over everything else because the market is dropping. So in order to save the stock market, we're going to have to see mass layoffs and stuff like that if the market keeps dropping the way that it is. And again, the market was already going to do this, but they were going to do it out of, because of profit potential, right? Just because they can and they can make more money. But if the stock market starts crashing, make no mistake, it's going to force their hand to move even faster in order to save the market. So your jobs are already at risk because they could make more money. But now that the market is about to crash, they're going to have to speed this whole fire process up in, working in AI in order to save the economy, right? And the funny part about it is a lot of people gonna lose their job as a result of it, but that's probably not one of the only things that can probably save the stock market unless this war ends right away, which I don't think it will. All right. So hate to say I don't have a lot of good news, but us as traders, we're in the best position of most other people. So it's not a whole lot to be excited about other than the potential for us catching a historic move in the markets. But other than that, I ain't gonna lie, it's crazy out here, bro. Pretty crazy out here. But comments, questions, concerns, right? Bears, knives, bullish oil, find an entry if you can. Everything is parabolic. Put some money to the side, put something that you're comfortable risking, get into the market. If you get these retracements on Nas, take the trade. If you hit 49.60 on gold, take the trade. If you hit 49.05 on gold, take the trade. If you get any retracement to close the gap on oil, take the trade. This is not going to rebound anytime quick. They're literally blowing up oil refineries in Saudi Arabia and Iran and all these other places. This is not a quick fix. Okay. So we're going to 140 on oil, right? Whether it's this week, next week, whenever, just know it's going to happen, right? Find a place where you can get in, where you're comfortable risking some money. If we close the gap, by all means, get in, right? But we might not even do that. I'm gonna be honest. This gap is not guaranteed to close, but if it does, there's your buy entry. That's your signal. All right. Comments, questions, or concerns, guys? Sounds like doomsday. It actually is, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. Look, I've been trading for 7, 8 years, and this is the probably the craziest times that I've been in because this has been manufactured by us. It's like this is not COVID. You know what I mean? Where, you know, COVID was a different type of situation. It was a little more controlled than this, and it's this is a little bit worse. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, comments, questions, concerns, guys. Did I miss anything? Like I said, I wish I had better news, but I haven't seen anything saying that this is slowing down. Any opportunity in the market can be good or bad. We just have to use the news to our advantage. Yeah, that is true. That is true. That is true. This is the best industry to be a part of. I'll tell you that in times like this, because we can make money off of the worst situations. And we can make money off good situations too. So for the sake of the world, I wish it was good situations we was making money off of. But unfortunately, a lot of people gonna perish. But you can position yourself to not be one of those people. And you just pray for everybody else. Go ahead, Pounds. Talk to me. I think I gotta get you. Go ahead.
Um, I'm got a question, bro, but thank you, appreciate you for this breakdown. But somebody in the chat asked, will we be able to rewatch this session?
Oh yeah, I'll put this on YouTube the moment I finish. I'll put this on YouTube the moment I finish. Oil on MT5. I mean, it should just say oil, U.S. oil. Let me see. Let me see. Yeah, just hit the search button at the top, and it's right under the oil tab for me. Yeah, so just hit the search button at the top of your quotes, and you should see it up there. WTI. Yeah, different brokers might call it different things. It could be WTI, it could be US oil, it could be crude, spot, it just depends on what broker you use. But it's all the same stuff pretty much. Any other questions and concerns? Y'all interested in currencies? We can still trade currencies, but it's a lot of other stuff. Interesting things we could trade. See what currencies are doing real quick. Then we get up out of here. See if we see any heavy crossovers cooking up. Mhm. So whenever I'm clicking through the markets real quick, guys, I'm just looking for little things like strong high heavy crossover. For example, I see a strong high here. I see the market give me a little hezzy here. Then we make a new low, right? So I want to see the high of that hezzy get cleared out, which it didn't do here. So if the market happens to come back, I'll be willing to take this sell here to target that low. So this is what I'm looking for when I'm clicking through pairs real quick. I'm looking like, are we pushing into a supply or leaving a supply? Are we pushing into a demand? or leaving a demand. That's really what I'm looking for. Stuff like that. All right. I got GJ. We have a hezzy crossover here on GJ. Keep your eyes on this. I wanted it last week, but the market just pretty much went sideways all week last week, right? Market went sideways all week last week. It did create a high here, right? So we look to the left, you have the hezzy crossover. You see imbalance here. So look at that region right there. I want to see the market go bullish to tap into this region. Once we get to like 212, 212.8 and above, I'll be looking for a sell in this region. Okay. Check out euros real quick. Wanted to see EJ tap into that zone. We never quite got that, unfortunately. So I'm neither buying or selling at this moment. I'd love to wait for 185.4 or so to get hit. Okay. Euro NZD is a bit of a mess. Yeah, Euro AUD is a bit of a mess. Yeah, a lot of these currencies, man. Stuff going on in the world is just, I like when the markets had a little more balance to it, a little more yin and yang. You know what I mean? Markets ain't been giving me much yin and yang throughout this, you know, current administration, but you can still get right. There ain't no thing. There ain't no thing. What's up, bro?
I know you said you was looking at currencies real quick. I sent you GA real quick. Look at that, see if that's something that aligns with.
All right, but
I just put it.
all right. So I see Devin on here. I know you be in your stock port. I know you be in your stocks, man. What you think about my stock market analysis? Am I barking up the right tree? Are we cooked, brother? Look for this on USD CHF, or excuse me, USD CAD. We'll see this as a potential target here. All right, so I see this as a potential target. We have a hezzy here that gets cleared out. All right, so you see the hezzy crossover weak lows that gets taken out. After we take out the weak hezzy, the market starts creating strong high. So we get strong high here. All right, hezzy crossover. We come and take this out, strong high here, hezzy crossover. So now I want to see that get cleared out. Let's look at 1.368. Okay, 1.368 with USD CAD. Let the market go bullish. Maybe for tomorrow during New York, hopefully. It just depends on how fast this retracement takes place. We'll probably see something like that. We see any relief coming in on the DXY. It's really just going sideways. So maybe it can drop. It's not overwhelmingly bullish, so maybe we can get that drop. Um, I'm not the biggest fan just because of the size of the sell-offs. Um, I'll take another look at it in case I overlook something. But he's on the 40. Oh nah, yeah, I'm not selling this. I don't like these candles. I need an imbalance or something like that. So I'm personally passing on it, but I mean shit, if you want to take it, man, just off risk to award, it's like I see the strong high heavy crossover potential, but again, just that last verification for me is just the size of those candles. That I don't look at this as an imbalance or a fair value gap. I don't look at this as like a buy to sell candle. Like they don't really have a lot of the components that I like to see to take an entry. Sam, if this is a Sam from the community, look, you take a screenshot just by doing this. You hit the camera button in the top corner. You can hit copy link, or you can, download or copy the image. But usually we just hit copy link and then you could just paste it in the chat. And I'll take a look at whatever y'all want me to take a look at. Just let me know. But yeah, that's how you copy it. That's how you send the trace. But yeah, y'all, that's really about it though. That's really about it. I see GJ giving us something potentially. But other than that, man, I mean, it's not a whole lot. Gold is setting up. Maybe that can be something for tonight or in the morning. I see gold setting up. Nas, if we can get a proper retracement, and oil, same thing. If oil can give us a proper retracement, that's a definite buy. I mean, it's very simple. Knowing what's going on in the world right now. All right. But like I said, I didn't want to be long today. We already been about an hour and 15, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Just so the call ain't too long for anybody that misses it and wants to rewatch. But other than that, like I said, I'll be putting this on my YouTube. I'll let you guys know when the link is ready. And other than that, that's all I got. All right. Big learning session for sure, for sure. It's a lot. It's a lot that goes into this. It's a lot that goes into this. All right. It looks solid. Looks solid, man. Looks solid. I see the Hezi crossover. Um, Japan currency should be increasing with people selling off US Treasury and stuff like that. I can see that. All right, guys. I'll see you guys on the other side. See you guys at the top from the top. The bottom is too crowded. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you got value from this call, please just do me a quick favor. Give your boy a follow on Instagram. I'm dropping more content, trading content, mindset content, all types of stuff. So do me a favor, give me a follow, like a couple of my most recent posts. That'll just let me know that, it's giving you guys some value, and I'll keep posting more. All right. Appreciate y'all, man. I'll let you guys know when that link drops. All right. Peace.